Hey there, it is Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Radcliffe.
What a pleasure to talk to this young lady, Janice Allen. She is an author. She's got a book out. It's called God in the Crossroads, Sign of Hope. But she's also the CEO and president of ICM, International Cooperating Ministries, which, Janice, first of all, how are you?
I am very well. Thank you. And I appreciate so much the opportunity to be with you today.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time because you were telling us before we started that you're in California doing grandma duty. And that sounds much more fun than talking to a couple of old washed up radio guys. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Both things are fabulous.
Now, we've been working with ICM for years and coming across great books and authors, some amazing guests. So first of all, how did you get involved with ICM? From what I read, you've been a part of ICM for what, 25 years or so, right?
Well, even longer than that, because the ministry's been around about 35 years, and it was actually started by my father. So, I've been involved in some capacity since the ministry started, either as a board member or in the early days doing some international travel with him, and had a chance really to see, God take this ministry from what had been just a calling on the part of my father to be more involved with global missions and shaping it into a ministry that I believe is having a global impact in the world of missions, unlike anything I've experienced before.
Now, for those, Janice, who don't know about ICM, give us a little background on what ICM does, the purpose of ICM, what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Well, ICM is a global church developer. And what I mean by that is the fact that we work through coming alongside existing indigenous ministries, and we help to empower them and resource them to develop the church within their own regions, within their own countries. And a couple of the ways that we focus on resourcing them were really two of the things that, my father heard from some of these partners years ago, that they needed Bible study material in their own languages in an audio format, because they had so many people that couldn't read. And they needed material in their own language. And so we offer in 60 languages a survey of the entire Bible, and all kinds of different types of players and devices, digital formats. And then we also provide the sustainability of buildings. And I think that is really one of the things that is a hallmark of ICM, because we have learned a process that integrates a lot of accountability and a lot of structure around making sure we're monitoring the construction of actual church buildings, orphanages, schools. And we've done it over 10,000 times.
Wow.
We have well over 10,000 buildings that have been built in 100 countries around the world.
Amazing.
Talking with Janice Allen of ICM. If your dad, is your dad still living?
No, he passed away at the ripe old age of 98.
Wow.
Right before the pandemic hit. And it was amazing, though, because he was still coming into the office when he was 98 years old.
Wow.
Still coming in, with this every morning, this expectation of what am I going to be allowed to see today of what God's doing in the world. And I just it kept him young in spirit, for sure, but gave him great purpose until God called him home.
I love what you guys are doing, Janice, on not just building churches and saying, here's a church, and then good luck, and leaving people on their own. You're also providing them the discipleship tools and the knowledge that they need to do what they need to do to spread the word of God. So that's awesome that you don't just leave them on their own and say, good luck with this, right?
Well, and frankly, from our perspective, the building is not the endpoint at all.
Right.
The building is a place for discipleship and a place to equip disciples to then go out and plant more churches. So, we really feel that ICM is establishing a model for church planting, for evangelism, and for discipleship. And having a place just helps encourage those things to happen.
Yeah.
Really gives sustainability. And, the other thing that I think is so important is the fact that ICM does not own these buildings. Because we do everything through partnerships, they get the permits, they get all the land deeds, they have to provide the land. The congregation is expected to participate in the construction itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the name of the church is their name. It is in their village. ICM is the silent partner in all of it, just encouraging them. And I think the sense of ownership is so incredible because it's theirs. It is not ICM's.
Janice, because of the huge impact of ICM, I'm sure you have millions of stories that you could tell us, but give us one that you just love to tell about how that, the message of Christ has influenced a village or an orphanage, and just folks have really been changed and transformed.
Well, there are, as you said, there are countless stories to tell. And when you have been involved with, over 10,000 churches, I almost feel like every single one of them has an incredible story. But when we talk about really the difference the church makes, and so often it is the story of lives transformed and hope. I mean, that is, part of why I named my book, God in the Crossroads, Signs of Hope, because I really began to see how when the presence of the church comes into a village, hope is restored. And that is so critically important to the human spirit. But there was one story in particular, and I remember I was in India and we were worshiping at a church that has an additional building that ICM calls a Hope Center. And it's where children can come and be nurtured and their physical needs being met and their spiritual and emotional needs being met. And we had been, I hate to say entertained, but we had worshiped with a group of beautiful little girls that had been dancing with ribbons and worshiping to songs. And they had been dancing so beautifully. And the pastor, when they finished, began telling the story of these 4 little girls standing in front of us who looked to be maybe 8 or 9 at the time. And he was saying how when the church was established in that community, how that area had so little regard for female babies, because in that area, in much of India, they're considered a burden.
Mm-hmm.
That girl babies are a financial burden and unwanted. And so in this particular hospital, when a girl baby was born, the parents would often leave the hospital, go out and buy poison, and then come put it under the tongue of the babies and kill them. And so that was common practice.
Wow.
This pastor of the church that ICM was involved with would go into the hospital and he would offer to pay $2 for a baby girl and bring that baby back to the Children's Hope Center and raise them there. Those were the 4 girls I was seeing standing in front of me.
Wow.
He had paid $2 a piece to bring them and have the church congregation raise them as their own. So when you talk about the tangible nature of God's love being extended into places of darkness and hopelessness, and lives literally and figuratively being changed forever. And just incredible stories like that we have a chance to be a part of.
Wow.
Janice Allen is the author of God in the Crossroads, Signs of Hope. And something that caught my eye was the kind of subtitle, which is Surprising Stories of Grace from Around the World. Surprising stories. Why are they surprising, Janice?
Well, I think so often, particularly when we look at the news from a human perspective, and actually our team was talking about it this week on devotions, that, in our world today, where every time you turn on the media, it's stories of volatility or animosity or violence or evil, and all that is meant for evil and darkness, God can redeem for grace. By his grace, can redeem for good. When we travel around the world and we're seeing God's redemptive work in the unlikeliest places, when you're talking about the genocide in Rwanda, or you're talking about the atrocities of the Khmer Rouge, and in Cambodia, where people were slaughtered by the millions because they were educated, just because they were educated. And how God is taking these killing fields and restoring them. In Vietnam, where there was just so much pain and anguish from the war, and God is as the work of redeeming, and his grace is being poured out, and person by person, community, town by town, nation by nation.
Wow. Love that. Janice Rosser Allen, she is the CEO and president of ICM, International Cooperating Ministries. We appreciate, Janice, what you and your team do. Thank you for putting missions up front. I think sometimes our culture, our American culture, we focused on ourselves, and we forget that there are other people around the world that need to not only hear the message, which is very important, but also they need the touch. They need the physical touch. ICM.org is the place to go to. Janice, have a great time with your grandkids. Safe trip back, and we'd love to talk to you again.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.